Howdy, loyal fans, fellow internet marketers, and people suffering from chronic boredom. I am None of Information Highwayman, and you are watching the Ace of Spades Friday website review. Today's website is proudly provided by Nolan. It is mortarsprayer.com, and I'm going to be using it as an opportunity to ask you the question, does your website make these common mistakes with images? The site actually gives us a good opportunity to have a look at homepage optimization in general, because it makes a number of mistakes which are quite common to homepages, but it also makes a number of mistakes I've seen a lot of other sites make with images, and I'm going to look at those in particular today. Here is the site itself, and going from my previous lessons new checklist of OOD, we start with orientation. And in terms of orientation, all I'm going to say here is the header is good. It makes sure that you understand exactly where you are. It says stucco sprayers and texture sprayers, and above that, under the mortarsprayer.com header, it also tells you stucco sprayers can spray mortar, stucco plaster, blah de blah de blah, which tells you pretty much what you need to know in terms of am I in the right place if you're looking for stucco sprayers, which presumably you would be. In terms of objectives, however, which is the second O of OOD, we have some problems. We've got a lot of unweighted links here on the right-hand side. We have navigation headers as well, which look like buttons, and it turns out they're actually clickable as well, which is a bit confusing because you don't expect headers to be clickable. You've got this featured product down here, which is competing for attention. And although you have a lot of unweighted links in the body, there aren't any actual calls to action. There are no buttons that you can click on. Now, just a quick note, when I talk about unweighted links, I mean links which are visually similar, so there's nothing to set one apart from the other, make one seem more dominant or more desirable than the other to a prospect. Okay, speaking of desirable, D is our third checklist item, desirability, and the first impression that I get of the site, which is quite important to generating desirability in terms of pure aesthetics, is that it's a very dull, dreary kind of color scheme going on here. I appreciate that it works well given the nature of what's being sold, but sometimes you've got to let that kind of thing go and actually go with a color scheme which is going to work better for people, to get them more visually interested in the site. This color scheme pretty much makes me want to go away rather than stick around. The text is also very cramped, very dense, very uninviting. It looks like a lot of hard work to read. A lot of that's caused by the fact that line height is too small, and also you'll note that the actual text size, here we've got 1.2 EM of 62.5, so what would that be, about 12 pixels high, which is again much too small. As I've said in pretty much every previous screencast, you want to be at about 16 pixels unless you are quite happy with alienating anyone over the age of 40. In this case, because there's a lot of text, you probably want to have a few more body paragraphs, and also a few more scannable headlines or subheads to keep things interesting from a visual point of view. There's also the issue that there's no real lead. And if you look at the opening sentence here, it says, our stucco spraying tools are used to spray plaster, stucco, small scale, shotcrete, papercrete, blah de blah de blah de blah de blah. What you have here is a list. A list should pretty much always be represented in bullet form, and of course it's not the best way to actually open. Generally speaking, you want to start off a bit easier and then work into a list like that. There are some benefits which are hidden further down the page. They're not completely out of sight because they are highlighted in green here, but they've got a bit of an odd formatting system, and these, not exactly sure what those are. Bullets, I suppose. The way that they're positioned, moving inwards towards the page, doesn't make them very easy to see as an actual list. So ideally you want to have all your bullets along the left-hand margin. Alright, I said I would talk about images, and I'm going to do that now. We've got this wonderful image of a kind of stucco castle going on here, and kudos on having a caption. That's something good. Most images don't have captions. For example, this one doesn't have a caption. And on most sites you'll see very, very few images with captions. Now, captions get read about twice as much as the copy that you've got on your page. Because people see images and they look at them and think, wow, cool, an image. The first thing that they want to do is know what the image is about, so they look underneath it to see if there's anything to explain it. That's why captions get read a lot, so you want to make sure that with a caption you are selling as much as possible. You want to be listing a key benefit or a key offer or something along those lines. Now, the real problem with this image is that when I mouse over it, I see that it's clickable. Okay, that's good. So I think, cool, I'll click on that and have a look at a larger copy, because I want to see the house in more depth. Wait a minute. What's this? This isn't a larger copy of the image at all. It is a product page. Now, in its defense, it has a nice call to action button, which is fairly standouty, but it's not what I'm expecting to see, and you definitely want to be giving your users what they expect. Taking them to a product page when they click on an apparently unrelated image is at worst confusing and at best seems a little bit sneaky. Maybe I got those two the wrong way around. Okay, another image here. I think, okay, if I click on this image, am I going to be able to see a larger copy of it now? Let's see. No, I'm not. I get to another product page, and I'm thinking, I mean, what is this even? This is the same sized image, except now there's no text around it, just a navigation and a little header thingy here. So I move down, because there's a lot of white space, I finally see that there's another image down here, and a final third one here, which is obviously zoomed in. And then I realize, wait a minute, this is the same product page I had before, only without a second product further down. So one wonders what the point of that even was. You want to definitely crop these images so that they are a lot more tightly connected to the text. Having this huge white space here makes it seem as if all that's on the page is the image when I first look at the page. And if I think there's nothing else here, I might well go back without actually scrolling down and bothering to read more, in which case, of course, I'm never going to see the add cart button. However, it gets worse. If I now click on this image, I finally get taken to a full-size image. And that's all well and good, but as you'll notice, this image is actually the exact same image as this one. If you have a look at the view image info, 319.6 kilobytes. View image info, 319.676 kilobytes. So this is the same image, it's just been resized for this page. For one thing, 319 kilobytes is very, very large for an image which is loading on the page, and I guarantee that you could optimize that down to something like 100 kilobytes at the most, because it's not a very complicated image. Secondly, you definitely don't want to be doing resizing in your browser. You're wasting a heck of a lot of bandwidth by having the full large image being loaded as a smaller image in a page. What you want to be doing is actually make a proper thumbnail out of that in an image processor, an image manipulation program, and use that on the page, and then have it clickable so that when you go through you can see a larger copy on the actual image page, as it were. Now, when I talk about image page, final point that I really want to make here is that having a single image load in your browser like this is really bad in terms of getting people to actually take any kind of action, because what you've basically done is you've left them hanging with this completely unusable page. There's nothing here that they can do except zoom in and zoom out on the image, which is really hopeless if you want them to click on calls to action and so on. What you want to do ideally is keep this page open, but load the image in the foreground in what's called a lightbox, which is like a little pop-up over the main page, which can then be dismissed again. And I see a lot of websites doing that now, which is great, but a lot of the older websites, especially websites which they haven't had a chance to figure out how to integrate a lightbox plugin, which isn't very difficult, but it does require a little bit of knowledge usually. Those kinds of problems do occur. So if you do currently have images loading on your own website in this fashion, I really suggest that you have a look into finding a lightbox instead. Resizing them in the browser is really bad as well, because as you can see they look kind of jaggy, and depending on the browser that you're using they'll either look really jagged or they'll look really blurry. In Chrome they look blurry, and in Firefox they look jagged. So, let me reiterate what's been covered here. First of all, make images clickable. Second of all, make sure that when you click them, they don't take you somewhere that you're not expecting. Thirdly, when you click them, make sure they load a larger copy. And fourthly, make sure that the larger copy is, in fact, loaded over the page and not in a separate window and in the same window. Finally, don't resize images with your browser, because that's really silly. It wastes a lot of bandwidth and it looks terrible. Alright, let's wrap up. I hope you found this useful. As you can see, I'm keeping things a little bit short, trying to go through it a little bit faster to keep them more interesting. If you have any comments, questions, or hate mail, by all means, forward them on to me at non@informationhighwayman.com. And if you are not an Ace Spades subscriber yet, it's a week daily marketing newsletter. It's usually sent via email. These screencasts are alerted to you via email as well, and it is completely free. You may sign up at informationhighwayman.com/Ace of Spades. Till next time, I am Non. Have a great weekend.